Hello everyone. In today's session, we will begin by understanding what process automation means in Salesforce and why it is important for modern businesses. After that, we will explore the range of automation tools Salesforce offers, workflow rules, process builder, flows, and approval processes, highlight their capabilities and ideal use cases. This will help set the foundation for selecting the right tool based on your needs. Next, we will look at Salesforce roadmap, specifically the deprecation of workflow rules and process builders in favor of Flow, which is now the recommended automation tool going forward. We will then focus on workflow rules in detail, covering their structure, triggers, criteria, and actions with real-world examples like sending email alerts when a new candidate record is created. I will also demonstrate how to configure a simple workflow rule in Salesforce and discuss its limitations and considerations towards the end of the session. We will have a quick look at what is coming up in next, including process builders and flows. Building on our earlier overview of Salesforce declarative automation tools, let us now take a deeper look at the concept of process automation and why it is essential in today's business world. Process automation in Salesforce refers to the ability to automate repetitive, rule-based business tasks and workflows, such as sending email alerts, updating fields, assigning tasks, or creating records, without writing any code. These automations reduce the need for manual data entry and ensure that the right actions happen at the right time and every time. To make this easier to grasp, imagine a self-driving car. Just as the car handles steering, braking, and navigation automatically, Salesforce automation takes care of routine business processes behind the scenes. This frees up your team to focus on more strategic, value-added activities like building customer relationships or solving complex problems instead of manually pushing data around. In today's fast-paced, digital-first environment, process automation isn't just a convenience, it's a necessity. Organizations that rely on manual processes often face delays, inconsistencies, and errors. By contrast, businesses that leverage automation are able to respond faster to customer needs, maintain consistent service, and scale their operations more effectively. Salesforce provides a range of automation tools that allow teams to streamline work, improve efficiency, and deliver better customer experiences. In this session, we'll focus on understanding how Salesforce automation can be applied in real business scenarios. We'll begin with workflow rules, one of the legacy foundational automation tools in Salesforce, and use it as a stepping stone to understand how other tools like process builders and flows evolve. We'll also look at the benefits of automation, time savings, reduced errors, improved consistency, and the ability to align your systems with your strategic goals. After this, we'll compare Salesforce's various automation tools and talk about when to use each, especially with Salesforce's shift towards flow as the preferred approach going forward. Salesforce offers a variety of declarative automation tools designed to streamline business processes without writing code. Each tool serves a specific purpose, ranging from simple task automation to complex logic handling, approvals, and AI-driven recommendations. Understanding the capabilities and limitations of each tool is essential to choosing the right one for your business needs. In this section, we will explore each of these tools briefly, including workflow rules, process builder, flow, approval processes, outbound messages, Einstein next best action, and Omni scripts to understand when and why you would use them. Workflow rules are one of the oldest legacy automation tools in Salesforce. They follow simple if this then that logic to automate tasks like sending email alerts, updating fields, or creating tasks based on undefined criteria. They are fast and easy to set up but limited in flexibility and are now being phased out in favor of Flow. Process Builder is a more visual and user-friendly tool than workflow rules. It allows you to build multi-step logic, update related records, and even call flows or Apex classes. However, Salesforce has also deprecated this in favor of Flow due to performance and scalability limitations. Flow is Salesforce's most powerful and flexible automation tool. It can be triggered when records are created or updated, run on a schedule, or launched manually through the UI. Flow supports branching logic, loops, screen components for user input, and integration with external systems. It is the go-to tool for most new automation use cases today. Approval processes are often used when a record needs to go through one or more levels of formal approval. For example, a job offer or an expense request may need to be reviewed and approved by different people. You define the steps, approvers, and actions based on outcomes like approval or rejection. Outbound message allows Salesforce to send data to an external external system via a SOAP-based message when certain criteria are met. It is often used for system-to-system integration where minimal coding is designed. Outbound messages are typically configured within workflow rules or approval processes. Einstein Next Best Action recommends the most relevant actions to users in real time based on business logic or AI models. These recommendations are driven by decision strategies and can launch flows or show contextual guidance in the UI. It is ideal for guided selling or service scenarios. Omni scripts are part of Salesforce Omni Studio and are used to create industry-specific guided workflows, commonly seen in industries like telecom, insurance, and healthcare. They provide a drag and a drop way to design dynamic forms and step-by-step processes for agents to customers. In addition to the core declarative automation tools above, Salesforce also offers several other features that support automation and were already covered in earlier sessions. Tools like Web to Lead and Web to Case automatically create records from web forms, streamlining lead capture and customer support intake. Assignment rules and escalation rules further automate the routing and prioritization of leads and cases, ensuring they reach the right team members quickly. While validation rules don't perform any actions, they enforce data integrity by preventing users from saving records that don't meet specified criteria, which indirectly supports automated processes by maintaining clean and reliable data. These features, though not part of Flow or Process Builder, are important automation mechanisms that reduce manual effort and improve efficiency across teams. As explained in previous slide, Salesforce offers a range of automation tools, each suited for different types of business processes. Workflow rules and process builders were once widely used for simple tasks like sending alerts or updating fields. However, both are now deprecated, and Salesforce recommends migrating to Flow, which is the most flexible and future-proof tool available. Flow supports everything from simple updates to complex logic, user interaction, and integrations, making it the primary automation engine moving forward. When you need structured approvals, like getting a manager's sign off on an expense or job offer, approval processes remain the go to solution and are still fully supported. Beyond these, Salesforce also provides tools for more specialized use cases. Outbound messages allow you to notify external systems via SOAP without code, though this is used less frequently in modern integrations after the introduction of platform events. Einstein Next Best Action delivers intelligent, context based recommendations using decision strategies, making it ideal for guided selling or service interactions. Lastly, Omni scripts, part of Omni Studio, are designed for industry-specific guided workflows commonly used in telecom, insurance, and healthcare. Understanding when to use each tool will help you design efficient, scalable automation in Salesforce aligned with best practices. Let us start with what workflow rules are. They are one of the Salesforce earliest automation tools used to automatically trigger actions based on record conditions. For example, when a lead is created with a specific rating, a workflow rule can instantly assign a task to a sales rep or send an email alert. It's a simple if this then that model, great for straightforward criteria-based automation. Workflow rules are built with three main components. Evaluation criteria determines when Salesforce should check if a workflow rule should run on record creation, edit, or only when a record starts meeting the criteria. Rule criteria defines what conditions must be true for the rule to trigger, either using simple field comparisons or a custom formula. Actions specify what Salesforce should do when the rule is triggered, such as updating a field, sending an email, creating a task, or sending an outbound message. You can configure actions to run immediately or after a delay. Some popular use cases for workflows include sending a notification when a new case is created, automatically updating a field based on picklist value, or creating a follow-up task when a high priority lead is entered. Workflow rule can be configured by going to the workflow rules section in the setup menu, by choosing an object and setting the evaluation and rule criteria, and then associating immediate or time triggered actions. While workflow rules are helpful, they have several limitations. You can't create new records except tasks, you can't delete records, or you cannot perform complex logic. Rules can't easily handle branching or dynamic behavior. There are argwide and object specific limits on the number of active workflow rules. To manage this, keep rules simple and modular, avoid combining too many conditions in a single rule, use flow instead when the logic involves multiple steps, branches, or different object interactions. Salesforce is deprecating workflow rules rules and process builders over time in favor of flow, which is far more powerful and scalable. While it is useful to learn workflow rules for legacy systems, all new automation should be built using flow going forward. This session helps build that foundational knowledge while preparing you to transition confidently. As Salesforce is actively deprecating workflow rules and process builders, they have provided an official migrate to flow tool to help ease the transition. This built-in utility allows you to convert existing workflow rules and process builder logic into flow builder compatible versions with just a few clicks, eliminating the need to rebuild everything manually from scratch. This tool has some limitations and some performance considerations also to be looked into. You can access it from setup by searching for migrate to flow. The tool provides a list of eligible workflow rules, and once selected, it automatically creates an equivalent record triggered flow. You can review the generated flow before activating it to ensure it meets your needs. This migration tool is especially useful for admins working on legacy orgs, helping them stay aligned with Salesforce roadmap without disrupting business processes. Keep in mind that not all complex scenarios are fully supported by the migration tool, especially if your workflow rules includes time-based actions. Those may require some manual adjustment. Always test the migrated flow in the sandbox before deploying to production. Review flow limits like record changes, loop usage, or governor limits, especially for bulk operations. Use this opportunity to optimize or consolidate outdated automations rather than just copying them over one by one. Now let us discuss the structure of workflow rule. The first section when you create a workflow rule is to select an evaluation criteria. It has three different options. When you select created as the evaluation criteria, the rule will evaluate only when a record is created for the first time. Use this when you only want the workflow to run once, such as sending a welcome email when a candidate first applies. For example, when a new candidate record is created with experience level as senior, assume that I want to auto assign to a senior recruiter, I can use this option. If the record is edited later, even if it meets the criteria, the rule will not run again. The second option, created and every time it is edited, will evaluate every time a record is created and every time it is edited, regardless of whether the criteria were previously true. Use this when you want the rule to fire repeatedly, including when updates are made. For example, if a candidate's status changes to interview schedule from any previous status or prior status, generate a task for the recruiter. Remember that this can be over-triggered if not managed carefully, especially if multiple edits occur during record updates. The last option, created and anytime it is edited to subsequently meet the criteria, is the most precise and efficient option. The rule runs when a record is created or when it is edited in such a way that the criteria becomes true, having been false before. This is ideal when you want to avoid repeated triggering and only act on a status change. For example, sending an email only when a job application status changed to shortlisted from any non-matching value. If a record already meets the criteria and it is edited again, the rule won't fire unless the field changes from non-matching to matching again. As part of the structure of workflow rule, the second criteria is called rule criteria. Salesforce provides two ways to define the rule criteria. First option is criteria or met, field operator value kind of criteria. This is a point and click method. You select a field, an operator, and a value. Supported operators include equals, not equals, less than, greater than, contains, does not equal, is null, is not null, starts with, ends with. The second way to create a rule criteria is by using formula. This is a more advanced and flexible method. You write a formula using Salesforce formula syntax similar to Excel or Apex formulas. The advantages include it allows multiple conditions, can include functions, and supported logical operators. Whenever you are defining a rule criteria, keep the criteria clear and focused to avoid unexpected behavior. Use formula-based criteria when you need complex logic, when you want to reference multiple fields, when you are using functions like is changed, especially useful for status transitions. Always test your rule before activating it to production. Let us look at the four main types of actions you can configure in a workflow rule that can be triggered immediately or with a delay using time triggers. Email alerts send out predefined messages to users, contacts, or external recipients. They are commonly used for notifications like new case created or high priority lead submitted. Field update action automatically changes the value of a field on a triggering record or a parent record if the parent is related using a master detail relationship. project. It's great for updating statuses, priorities or owners based on specific conditions. Create task creates a follow-up task assigned to a user, prompting manual action after an event. For example, it can create a task for a sales rep to call a lead once it reaches a certain score. An outbound message sends records data to an external system via a SOAP web service. This is useful for simple integrations where you want to trigger downstream systems based on Salesforce activity. Instead of firing immediately, you can delay any of these 4 actions using time triggers. For example, you could send a reminder email 3 days after a case is created, as long as it still meets the workflow rule criteria at that time. Let us now see some examples of how to create workflow rules and how to associate actions to them. The first demonstration that I want to do is how to perform a field update using a workflow rule. When a candidate with senior experience is created, I want to automatically assign it to a senior recruiter. In order to achieve this, so I'm going to create a workflow rule. I'll go to setup, I'll go to quick find and type workflow rules, and I'll create a new rule. As I told you earlier, workflow rules are being deprecated. So that's why Salesforce is recommending to go to flow builder. So I want to continue with workflow rules because I want to demonstrate workflow rules. But the ideal option is always do your automations using flow builder and using the lightning flow. So I'm clicking on continue with workflow rule. In the next section, I'll click and select the object. So I want to write this workflow rule on the candidate object. So I'm selecting candidate object, clicking on next. In the next screen, if the first section asks you to give some metadata for your rule name should be unique. It has to follow all variable name conventions. So I want to give name for my rule, assign senior experienced candidate to a recruit. For this rule, I'm using the created section because I want to assign a resource only when the candidate is created. For rule criteria, I'm using criteria are met, and in experience level, if it is equal to senior and director, I want to run this rule. You can evaluate the rule in 2 ways, by criteria are met or formula evaluates to true. Here my criteria is very simple. That's why I'm using criteria are met, and I'll click on save and next. In the next screen, you have an option to add actions, and you can also add time-based actions. So for this requirement, I want to use an immediate action. So I'll click on add actions, and I want to do a field update. So I'll click on field update. Give a unique name for your field update recruiter assignment field. So my candidate has a field called recruiter assignment. For all senior candidates, I want a recruiter to be associated with them. So the data type is lookup because I selected a lookup field. You have an option to re-evaluate a workflow rule after the field change. So here we are updating a field. So Salesforce is asking, do you want to re-evaluate this? So since this is a field update, any update will trigger a workflow rule. All the rules will be executed once again. So for this, I'm not selecting it. So then it is asking me to select a recruiter. It's a lookup field. So I'll click on lookup field, and I have one recruiter called Trailblazer Tutor, and I'm associating that recruiter to this candidate. I'll click on save. You can associate multiple actions to a single workflow rule. For now, I'll only add one action for this rule, and I'll click on done. If you observe, the rule is not active yet. You have to activate it. So I'll click on the activate button. Now the rule is active, and this rule is fired whenever a candidate record is created. Candidate's experience level is senior or director. So let me go to the recruiting app. I'll select a candidate. I will clone him. Experience level, I'll select as director and click on save. Once you click on save, the rule will fire automatically. And if you observe, the recruiter assignment field is updated with the Trailblazer tutor. Before writing my next workflow rule, which is about email alerts, I want to talk about a prerequisite for email alerts, which is email templates. Email templates are pre-built messages that Salesforce can send automatically through email alerts. Instead of writing custom messages every time, you can define a format once and reuse it across your automation. They save time, enforce brand consistency, and reduce human error, especially in high volume tasks like recruiter notifications or status updates to candidates. Salesforce provides 4 types of templates. So in order to create an email template, go and type templates and select classic email templates, and you'll click on the new template. Salesforce provides 4 different types of templates. The text template, which is plain and simple, no formatting is allowed here. HTML using classic letterhead uses company branded headers and styling. For this, you can create a header and associate that header to the email template. Custom HTML allows full HTML coding, and Visual Force is used when dynamic logic or formatting is needed. For this example, I'll select custom and I'll click on next. Next, it will ask you for the metadata for the email template. So I'll give some name to this, new application notification. Then I'll say available for use. Then you can give some basic description about this template. I want to give a subject as new application submitted, and I'll use some merge field syntax. So if you observe here, I'm using a specific syntax for getting the candidate's name from the job application object. So templates support dynamic content using merge fields. This is called merge field. The merge field starts with a flower bracket and an exclamation mark, and you will use the field API name within the flower bracket and exclamation mark. This will pull the information from the record and associate it as a subject. I'll click on next. So once you click on next, you will get a classic email template section where you can actually construct the HTML body for your email. And if you observe here, you have an option to generate the merge fields by selecting the field API names from different objects. You can select an object, then select the associated field, and it will generate a merge field. You can copy that and paste it here. Or if you know the field API name, you can also type it manually. Now for this example, so I've already pre-documented a template. So I'll just copy and paste that template name and then explain. Since this is an HTML template, you can use all the HTML tags. If you observe here, I'm using a lot of HTML tags, and I'm using merge fields to get individual fields from the job application object. So once I'm satisfied with the template, you can click on next. Then you will click on copy text to from HTML. So it will just copy and replace that as normal text. So plain text, then you can click on save. The next demonstration that I want to do is how to send an email alert using the email template that we created in our earlier slide. I want to send an email alert to the recruiter when a new job application is submitted. So in order to do that, I will go to workflow section and I'll select the object. This time I will be selecting the object as job application. The rule name is send email alert to recruiter. I want to send it whenever a job application is submitted, means whenever it is created. The rule criteria is when job application status is not equal to empty. I'll click on save and next. And here I want to send an email alert. So I'll click on new email alert. So when you select new email alert, you get a new UI, which will ask you information like the description of the email. So here I'm saying send email notification to recruiter when an application is submitted. So the unique name is auto generated. So object is job application. Email template, I'll select the template that I created in my previous step. Recipient, so whom do I want to send the email here? So you can send email to different kinds of recipients using email alert. The first option is you can send it to user. Here I don't want to directly send to an end user. I want to send it to the owner of job application. So owner is a owner field. So in that case, I have to select user type as owner. I want to send an email notification to that owner. Or you can send email to email field. If you defined an email field on the object, you will get the respective field API names here, and you can select that and make it as a selected recipient. That way, whatever email ID is available on that field, to that email ID, Salesforce will send an email notification. You can select owner, which we have already selected here. You can select a group of people as well. You can select a user or a role or role subordinate. You can also select a related user and select the Java application owner. You can also manually send the email to some email IDs. You can manually type the email IDs. You can add up to 5 emails here, separated by new line, and from where you want to send this email. So if you want to send this email from the current user's email address, you can do that. Or you can select a default workflow user email address. You can set up a default workflow user in the process automation settings. Here I want to send it from default workflow user's email address. So all the emails using this email alert will be sent with this workflow user's email address, and I'll click on save. So once you're done, you click on done, then you can activate it. Now, if you want to test it, so I'll go back to Java application object. Since I created the rule on submission of a Java application, I'll create a new Java application. So I'll select the stage as new, status as open. If you remember, I want my Java application status to be not equal to null. So that's why I'm saying open. So I'll select the position senior director. I'll select the candidate C002 and click on save. So here it actually gave me the application has submitted, candidate name, so position details are given here. You can view the application, and there is some syntax error, so we can fix that later. But like it has given pulled some of the fields and given the details accordingly. For the next demonstration, I want to use the task creation action. When a candidate reaches interview scheduled stage, I want to create a task for the recruiter to confirm the logistics. In order to achieve this functionality, so I'm going to workflow rules. I'll create a new rule. So I want rule on job application, create task for recruiter to confirm logistics. For this scenario, I'm saying created and every time it is edited to meet the criteria. The last option, which is more precise option, I'll select created and anytime it is edited to subsequently meet criteria. And for criteria, I'm selecting stage equals interview scheduled and I'll click on save and next. This time I want to create a task. I'll click on new task. So when you click on new task, Salesforce gives a user interface which asks for a task information. So when the task is created, I want to assign this task to a recruiter. So I'm selecting the assign to, giving a subject as confirm interview logistics, then select a due date. I will say rule trigger date plus 1. So the rule is going to trigger today. So today plus 1. It will add 1 day and it'll create an alert to make the due days as next day. Status, I'll say not started. Priority as high. And I'll click on save. Click on done. Click on activate. So whenever a new job application is created or whenever it is edited to meet the criteria subsequently, and when job application stage is equal to interview scheduled, a task will be created and assigned to the recruiter. So let me go and demonstrate this now. I'll go to job application. I'll create a new job application. I'll clone it. So currently my stage is new. So no email, no task will be created. I'll click on save. You see there is no upcoming task or anything due here. I will go and change the stage from new to interview scheduled and click on save. And if you see here, confirm logistics, interview logistics task is created automatically. The next demonstration that I want to do is of outbound messages. Whenever a job offer is approved, I want to send an outbound message to a third-party system. Since I don't have any configured third-party system, for this demonstration, I'm using a free application called webhook.site. This webhook.site is a free site, so you can just click on webhook.site and for you it will generate a unique URL and this can be used in your workflow to send message to this URL. The disadvantage of webhook.site is it will not send an acknowledgement back to the caller whenever it receives a message. Without any further ado, so let us go and see how to configure an outbound message in Salesforce. For this, I'm going to workflows. I've already created a workflow rule called send case details. So the rule is simple. So it has the basic rule name and it has an evaluation criteria. Here I'm saying execute or evaluate this workflow whenever a record is created and every time it is edited. And the object that I'm considering here is case. And my rule criteria is whenever the status is changed, I want to send outbound message or I want to perform some action. Workflow rule only will execute when both evaluation criteria and rule criteria are met. Now within this workflow rule, I have a immediate workflow action, which is an outbound message. Let me go and show you the outbound message. Outbound message has a unique name. You can use some description. It will ask like, where do you want to send this message to? So in this case, I have just used the URL that webhook has given me as my endpoint URL. And then it will ask you what is the username that I have that it has to use for sending this message. So I've selected this user here. You can also send session ID as part of your message so that the third party can leverage this session ID and then using it, it can connect to Salesforce and perform any future updates back to this same object. Now I'm sending these fields to my webhook like case number, ID, status, and subject and click on save. I've already activated this rule. Let me go and test this. So for testing this, I've opened one case and for it to work, I want the case status to be changed. So I'm changing it from working to escalated and clicking on save. Whenever I click on save, outbound message is the workflow rule will trigger and it will actually send message to webhook. If you see here, it has sent this message to webhook. And if you see, this is a case number 1028. That is what I selected. And this change status to escalated. And I'm also sending starting generated value and failure, what the subject I'm sending. So I'm sending these 4 values. All those 4 values are received by webhook. And as I told you, webhook does not send any acknowledgement. So Salesforce assumes that the message was failed and it will resend again. That's why you see one more message was sent by Salesforce, assuming that webhook did not receive it. So if you want to see if the third party system has received an outbound message or not, so you can go to the monitoring section and you can go to the outbound messages and you can monitor these outbound messages. Here, if you see, there was an outbound message which was tried to be sent to webhook. It attempted 2 times. The reason it attempted twice because it assumed that the message was not sent because webhook was not sending any acknowledgement back. So it will continuously try multiple times. The way the retry happens for outbound messages is first time it will retry after a minute, next it will retry after 2 minutes, then 4 minutes, then 8 minutes. So in that way, exponentially, it is going to retry multiple times. So I don't want to overburden the system. So I'm deleting this message so that it will not retry again. This way you can configure an outbound message and send information from this system to a third party system. I want to demonstrate a time trigger. Assume that a job application stays in the shortlisted status for more than 3 days. I want to send a reminder email to the hiring manager so that he can act on that record. So for this demonstration, I'm going to workflow rules. I've already created a workflow rule called send reminder email to hiring manager. So the rule is simple. So it has the rule criteria is created and every time it is edited subsequently meet criteria. Remember, time-based workflows or time triggers cannot be added when you select created and every time it is edited. It can only work on created or created and every time it is edited. It is edited to subsequently meet criteria. So I'm selecting the third option. I cannot run time trigger on a second option. And criteria here I'm selecting is whenever the job application stage is shortlisted, I want to run this time-based workflow. And if you see the time-based workflow, I've created a time-dependent workflow action. So let me edit this so that it makes things clear. Currently it is active, so I cannot add any more. Let me deactivate this so that I can demonstrate you about time trigger. I'll click on edit. If you see add time trigger is available now, you can click on add time trigger. And here you can only trigger this based on a date and a time field. So Java application has only created date and last modified date fields. It does not have any other date fields or time fields. Rule trigger date is whenever this rule is executed. So I want to use rule trigger date and I want to trigger it 3 days after this rule is triggered. I've already selected that here. You see this action. It is 3 days after rule trigger date. That's what I have configured. And within this rule trigger date, I'm adding one action, which is an email alert action, which we have already seen. You see the email alert, I'm sending, giving a description, selecting the template for email, and for this demonstration, I've hard coded the user ID, but ideally you should have a user field or a lookup to user field on your Java application object, which is hiring manager. You have to select that. Now, in order to demonstrate this, I'll go to Java application. As you know, whenever the status is on shortlisted, then only it will trigger. So I'll go and select this as make the change to shortlisted. Now the evaluation criteria will meet as well as root criteria will meet. So whenever it meets, it executes the workflow rule. And once it executes the workflow rule, I will not be able to show you the email because the email is triggered 3 days after the work stage is changed to shortlisted. So you can go and monitor all your time-based workflows in the monitoring section under time-based automations. Here you can select the name of the rule or you can select object. I'm selecting object contains job because this is on job application. And if you observe, you see there is a send reminder email which is scheduled for 7:40 p.m. on 7/19/2025, which is 3 days after today. So after 3 days, it is going to send an email provided there is no change in that status field to some other value in these next 3 days. Now let us go and see what happens when the status changes during the next 3 days. Now assume that I'm changing, someone came here and after shortlisted, some is selected as interview scheduled. Do I need to send a reminder email? No, I don't want to send a reminder email because the status, the stage is not in shortlisted for more than 3 days, right? So when I click on save, if you go back to time-based workflow and refresh the screen by selecting object contains Java application or job. Now, if you see that, you note that time-based workflow is no more available here. So what Salesforce typically does, whenever there is a change in the record, it will go and check the time-based workflow queue. And if that record was part of the time-based workflow queue, and if the rule criteria does not meet, it is going to delete that time-based workflow and it is not going to send the time-based workflow anymore. So these are the various ways that you can use workflows. In the previous slides, we have seen how to create a workflow rule and how to associate different types of actions to these workflow rules. In this slide, let us highlight some of the technical limits of using workflow rules in Salesforce. You can have 500 total rules per object. This includes both active and inactive rules. Keeping your object automation streamlined helps prevent hitting this limit. Out of these 500, 50 can be active rules per object. Salesforce can increase this to 300 upon request, but exceeding this may lead to performance issues or system complexity. Each rule can have 40 immediate and 40 time-dependent actions. This allows a rule to do quite a bit, but you must still design carefully to avoid redundancy. You can have a maximum of 10 total time triggers per rule, useful for staggered automation but constrained. Salesforce only allows 1000 time triggers to run per hour per org, so large batches might be delayed. The daily allocation of emails sent through email alerts is 1000 per standard user license per org, and a combined 2 million email per day limit is shared across workflows, flows, and approval processes, something to consider in high volume orgs. Remember, the limit is 15 for developer edition. Finally, workflows on the user object are restricted. They don't support time-dependent actions and allow limited field updates. Emphasize that exceeding these limits means either refactoring or moving to a flow, which is now the recommended tool for complex and scalable automation. Now let us talk about some workflow rule considerations. Workflow rules are now considered legacy. Salesforce strongly recommends transitioning to flow, which supports advanced logic and future innovation. Time-dependent actions only fire if the record still matches criteria at the scheduled time, otherwise they are skipped. Outbound messages are limited to SOAP protocol, and the receiving endpoint must be online to accept them. Workflow rules don't support complex logic like if-else branching, loops, or subflows. This is the key reason to move to flow. Field updates via workflow won't trigger validation rules, flows, or other workflows unless the field value actually changes. You cannot send email alerts to users with invalid or empty email addresses, and your org's email deliverability settings must allow system emails. If you want to edit time triggers, you need to deactivate the rule first, make changes, then reactivate it. Not as flexible as flow. Wrap up by stressing that while workflow rules are still functional, they are best used for simple legacy automations. New automation efforts should default to flow. So far, we have explored how workflow rules can automate routine recruiting tasks using actions like field updates, email alerts, task creation, outbound messages, and time-triggered reminders. We also discussed key system limitations and design considerations to help you implement them effectively. As workflow rules are now considered legacy, our next sessions will focus on more robust and scalable automation tools, process builder, flow, and approval processes. These tools offer greater control, branching logic, and integration flexibility. Be sure to join the upcoming deep dives to learn how to future-proof your automation strategy and maximize Salesforce declarative power. Before we wrap up, I want to remind you that all of these Salesforce training sessions, including this one on process automation introduction, are organized in sequence on my website, trailblazertutor.com. If you are following along on YouTube, be sure to check the video description. I have included the link there so you can access the full learning path, assignments, and downloadable content in the right order. It is designated to guide you step by step, whether you are starting from scratch or looking to deepen your expertise as an admin or developer. Also, if you found this video helpful, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you never miss a new session. It really supports the channel and helps more learners discover these free training resources. Thank you for being part of the Trailblazer Tutor community. Let us keep learning and growing together.